Okay, so let's get right into it. In my last video, I explained why I left my job and key questions that you should be asking yourself if you need to determine whether or not leaving your job is right for you. Today, we're going to be talking about what a mini retirement is and how you can plan for one. So a mini retirement is basically an intentional amount of time that you have decided to take off from work. So maybe you're resigning from your position to take a year off to go travel or do anything else that you feel you want to do. The idea is that you are planning for this. And so this is different than just resigning and not having a backup plan or, being laid off or anything like this. This is an intentional move and decision that requires some planning. So the benefits of having a mini retirement is you have the time and the energy in order to go enjoy those things that you would want to do while you are retired. So this is a really important thing that I think now has become more and more popular, where people want to take advantage of the time that they have now in order to create more of a work-life balance, but also really enjoy their work and the fruits of their labor. So there are several steps that need to be put in place when you're planning for a mini retirement. The first thing is creating additional streams of income. So now you can sell products, you can build an online presence, you can create your own business, you can create some freelance work for yourself. Whatever it is, start creating additional streams of income that are going to help you save for this time off. Okay, so the second step is you want to build your assets and your savings. The assets can be used later to liquidate if you need to fund your mini retirement. But the idea is that if you're able to do this with your savings, that is actually the ideal situation. So you want to make sure you're building as much of a cushion as possible, because this is going to help you later in taking that time off. The next step in this process is figuring out how to keep your cost of living as low as possible. So you want to potentially move to an area, a state, maybe a different country where the cost of living is very low and you can have your money stretch for a longer period of time. Ideally, you want to have enough savings, enough liquid cash in order to fund your cost of living for a year and a half. Now, this is depending really largely on how much time you decide to take off. But at a minimum, you want to be able to be very comfortable and not stressed. So you want to have at least 18 months of expenses saved up in order to lead a very comfortable, carefree mini retirement without worrying about finances. Okay, so this next step should be done in conjunction with the last one. What you want to do is determine how much money you're comfortable spending while you're on your mini retirement. So if you're not comfortable spending your entire savings, you need to determine how much of your savings you are comfortable spending and then plan for that. Is that going to align with exactly how much time you want to take off? So if you want to take off for a year, but you're only comfortable spending $20,000, and you're going to lead a very different life in that year than someone who's comfortable spending $40,000, $60,000, or $80,000 for that year. So you just have to determine exactly how much you're able to save, how long that's going to take you to save, and then how long is that savings going to last you in a manner that's comfortable for you. Okay, the last step, and perhaps my absolute favorite step, is you need to account for travel. So when you're off, you're gonna have plenty of time on your hands. And if you have been one of those people who has dreamt of traveling, or you had to move to a different place in order to keep your cost of living low, you have got to account for traveling back home to see your friends, your family. Maybe you want to take a vacation. Maybe, you have other things you want to do and see. You have to account for travel. And absolutely, I am going to 100% encourage you to travel while you're off. Okay guys, let me know in the comments below, what would you do on your mini retirement? What is your biggest fantasy for your time off?
Do you find that? Like, I found when I was, working my last job, I was in education, and I just found that there really was no quality of life, like outside of work. And I was also I was working and living in New York City. I had grown up in New York City, been in New York City my whole life. But I just kind of found like the hustle and bustle of it all, and like it was this idea that you continuously literally grind, right? And it felt like my soul was being grounded up is what it felt like. And
Yes.
how do you find like the work life balance is a real issue? And like ideally, what do you think you need to thrive in terms of like that?
So yeah, so like I did my training in New York City, and I actually work in Jersey City, so it's pretty, pretty
Yeah,
close, it's the same kind of pace, and
yeah,
I definitely do find that you are basically rewarded for not having a life, and I just don't think that's very healthy for any of us. And yeah, in my early 20s, I was able to keep it going for maybe like the first year, but then I burnt out fast.
yeah.
Yeah, and I really definitely think, a lot of these bigger, older corporations need to incorporate more of like that work-life balance into their culture.
Yeah. Well, what are some of your reasons for staying? Like, why haven't you left?
So, like I said, I was enjoying the work at one point in one of the earlier teams I was on. So I thought, let me just make it through, and like maybe everyone's, how we're kind of fed this narrative that everyone hates their job. And I thought, well, like that's what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And then it really got to be too much. But then I was afraid that, like, what would I even transition into? And with having been in this, in these similar roles at the same company for a number of years, I felt like, I don't really have any other experience outside of IT. If I go into something else that I just have my education to back me up in terms of business, then I'd have to start at the beginning, which means, I'd be making a lower salary, which that's not an option. I had to support my family. So it was really just a matter of like me trying to figure out, and it just kept going on. And I didn't even feel the years go by, basically, of me just trying to figure out, where do I go from here? Like, how do I not get into the same kind of a role just somewhere else? Because that's the only experience I have. And then finally I decided, you know what? None of this really makes sense. I know I've wanted to run an online business since I was like 20 years old. And it always just seemed like, that's not a realistic thing. But then we look around and there's so many people who are actually doing that. It's like, okay, why is it not realistic for me?
Yeah.
So instead of trying to find another job, I just started focusing on growing my business while I'm still working so that I can eventually transition out.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You never know who you may be helping.